discuss what's worked well and what hasn't. And what hasn't worked well, you focus on the problem, not the person, and you kind of do the same mountain climbing activity again. Rinse and repeat until you've come to a place of resolution where they say, hey, we're pretty good. We're going to pause mediation, go out into the world and live. And if you need mediation again, you know where to find Katrina.
That was so fun. What a brilliant restating, Crystal. That felt so affirming. You got it.
I love mediation.
Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it.
Hey everybody, Crystal Stokes here. Joining me today is Katrina Busselle. Katrina has a Master of Arts in Conflict Resolution from Antioch University and led a community dispute resolution program for years, where she trained and supervised volunteers who mediated family, civil, and small claims cases. Her career through line, beginning at the Mediation Center, is leading individuals, teams, and organizations to do extraordinary things. She is the author of 1,000,000 Reasons Why You Can't, and be warned, if you talk to Katrina about something you want to do, chances are you will find yourself on the path to getting things done.
Do you agree with that statement, Crystal?
100%. You're definitely a get bleep done kind of gal. Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be here with you today. This is fabulous. Truly honored. So thank you.
Same. You know, I sought you out for this because mediation comes up all the time in the work that we do. We are humans. Being a human involves conflict on a regular basis. You've been really helpful in showing that conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's simply a four-letter word that's not really four letters, and how we can learn some concrete skills to help us do this better, because it's inevitable, especially in the workplace. I just give us a little bit of background on what drew you to mediation and why you love it.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. You know, mediation is extraordinary, and I became expert in it and was interested in it because the role of the mediator is to help people get from kind of a stuck place, right? Like a place where they're stuck and they don't really see options and they're in patterns that they don't want to be in, guided through to a place where they can have agreements and they can have, resolution and just better relationships and better lives. So it's really a transformative process, and I am really committed to the concepts. And so I'm hoping today I want to share some of the basic concepts of mediation, and I think we might be having some fun later with a role play. So let me talk a bit about this, but then let's, roll up our sleeves and have some fun with some real scenarios. So mediation in its simplest way, for people listening and as you know, is really, it's a process where people, I'm going to just use the example of two people, but it can obviously be groups, it can be countries, it's the same process. People are getting together to address their often intractable challenges and find a resolution. And so, the best time to use mediation is when people really have a stake in working it out. So you should ask yourself, if you're listening, hey, this could be for me if I'm part of a work group and we really are committed to working together. Or I'm neighbors with this person. The neighbor disputes, Crystal, that we used to hear were incredible, trees and all of that, but you're going to be their neighbor. So we need to work it out, right? So that's kind of something to think about. Like, is there a reason for people to commit to working it through. And let me just tell you before we get going, there are a few places where mediation really isn't appropriate. And that is when because people are essentially negotiating with each other. So when there are huge imbalances of power, it's not appropriate. And, if someone doesn't have the ability to negotiate for themselves, or they're just going to get kind of run over, no good. Or like in cases where there's abuse, mediation isn't the place for that. So just to be clear, or, in your setting, if somebody's getting ready to fire somebody, like you're getting fired, let's not fire them if that's the action. But if you're thinking about, how to put someone on a performance improvement or like how to actually make some change, then that would be an example of where mediation could work. So that's in general what mediation is, how it's used, when it isn't used. Do you have any questions on that before I keep going?
No, I guess I would ask, like, in a workplace, could we give an example of what that power imbalance might look like that you maybe have seen in the past, so that people understand what we mean by like a big power difference between two people that might be seeking mediation?
Yeah, the most obvious one is, like the CEO and the janitor, right?
Yeah.
So that is it. There is so much work that can be done with colleagues who are on parallel with each other. That is fair game in every case. And then when somebody is technically above, but doesn't have, the ability to fire them or ruin their life, that works really well as well.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just talk a little bit about this wonderful concept I love of the mountain of anger, and then I'm going to talk about some of the components of mediation. So the mountain of anger is, and literally, if you could see me, everybody, you'd see me holding my hands up in the air, literally making like a speed bump sign, the mountain of anger. And this is what happens overall in a mediation. And people come in and the mediator sets the tone. And there are agreements around confidentiality, about respectfulness, but really gives each person a chance to talk about what is happening from their perspective. So in the speed bump, at that point, they're going up, right? They're really able to let it fly, if you will. And we'll be talking about what the mediator is doing in that process. But they really have a chance to express themselves. And the mediator is working to take that expression and turn it into something that can be agreed upon and become part of the solution, but they need a chance to talk. And then it kind of culminates. It's almost like an energetic thing. You can feel it. And then once they've expressed themselves, and I'm sure, Crystal, you can relate to this just from, being in a discussion with your significant other, right? It's like once you kind of let it out, then you're like, okay, I think now I might be ready to go down the other side. So then that's the other side of the speed bump or the mountain, where you're breathing, where you're seeing that there are points of connection, where you're able to hear it. And then it ends, the session ends, and the mediation ends with kind of that reset to calm. Everything isn't completely figured out necessarily, but there's a sense of being heard, and there's a sense of where do we go next. And so it's really very powerful. And why I'm bringing that up is kind of the overarching concept, is because I want everyone to know that you can't go right to solution. You can't go right to how are we going to fix this right now, because there's been too much built in. And if there was a way to do that, they probably would have done it before. So
good point. Can I ask you in the process? So I really appreciate you setting the context for people to come into mediation expecting to climb that mountain or speed bump, that you will feel your emotions go up. You will feel kind of a peaking, then you should feel some relief. Yeah. But getting to the solution requires this groundwork to be set. Yeah. And that's a natural part of the evolution. Can we also, you mentioned how something that mediators do, they set this kind of container, yes, as the meeting is starting. And I think that is often a foreign concept to people. Because I know that when people approach mediation, they're often really nervous. They say, look, this other person and I, we have not had a good relationship. I'm afraid that something really bad will happen, that we'll yell at each other, or the other person will stonewall and won't say anything to me. I'm afraid it's going to get really nasty. and that mediation sort of has this way of, in the beginning, setting a container. Can you talk a little bit more about how the pre-work is done, the actual mediation that makes people feel more comfortable and confident?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Crystal. There's a conversation that happens. It's often not with the mediator. It's with the person who's coordinating the mediation. So if you had one of your team members who is mediating, it may be you who's having this conversation. And so it's the pre-call, if you will. And what is happening in that pre-call is the mediator is setting that safety for the container, is listening for, listening for the power imbalances that we talked about, going to ditch it, going to say this isn't appropriate if there is that. And listening for their potential openness to reaching some type of resolution. They don't have to be there, but just like listening for that. And you're excellent at that, and your team is excellent at that. So that happens before they even get in the room. So they know what to expect in terms of the session, about what's going to happen. They know that it's confidential. So the mediator is taking notes, but nothing's getting reported back to any manager. It's completely, and they are not able to talk about it with their loved ones, and they're being just encouraged and supported in their bravery to do this. And so that's really important. And I'm really glad you brought that up. So when we sit down, there's often, and in Zoom, it can be a virtual sit down, right? There's like a little bit of joking that might happen, or just some making people comfortable. And then the mediator begins, and they literally need to set the container. It's the same container for everybody. And in addition to the things I said, there's some things it's especially important, like with teenagers, but it also can happen in the workplace, just name calling, the insults. The mediator will manage that, because this isn't the place for that. And if they'll get warned, and if that happens, the mediation will just end. So there really needs to be that spirit of, we're in this, it's terrifying, but we're going to do it.
Wow. I really appreciate that part. I think that is often super helpful to people coming in, that there's been some containment first. They know what to expect. They have some confidence built before they're coming to sit down together, where the nerves start to kick in. And then I know, so you talked about the mountain of anger, and then we were getting into some of the skills that are being used. So if someone's watching a mediation take place, and they're like, what is this mediator, what are the words for what this person's doing? Because they see you doing something, but we don't have a language for it.
Yeah. So I'd love to go over a few of those essential tools that the mediator is using, because to your point, if you were observing this, and people do, you're going to be noticing what the mediator says and does, and it's not going to be what you think if you've never witnessed it before. Like if their mediator isn't a judge, the mediator is never going to tell these people what to do. The mediator does not know the outcome. Literally, the mediator does not get to inform the outcome with their opinions. So they are there to facilitate this process. And so here are a few of the tools. Listening is really important. And I bet you do a workshop that's maybe 3 hours long on communication, and listening is part of that. And so what we know is that there's several parts of listening that are much more than just being quiet while the other person talks. So I'm going to give you a couple of those, an example and a couple of those samples. So one example, and this is cool and pretty simple, but the people who are listening tell me, I'm really curious to see if you relate to this. There's this concept of restating. And so restating is essentially saying back to the person what the essence of what they're, I don't know. You know what, Crystal? Tell me something, and just give me a little something, and I'm going to restate back to you what you said.
Well, I'm going to give you something.
Into what we're going to role play about, or you can do anything you want, but I think it's easiest to just show you.
I'm going to give you something real, because I was going to actually interrupt our podcast to tell you that I had just gotten a text message about one of my future things later in the day that's coming up that is being postponed. So I have a little more time. So we get into a little more today, which allows me 15 minutes past the hour. So that is exciting news in case we want to go into a little more detail, like on our role play.
Okay. Fantastic. That's great. So Crystal, it sounds like you are relieved to be kind of called on to answer this question because you actually have some news for me about how we can extend. And so it's great to have the opportunity to say that.
Bingo. So that's that reflecting back what I just said. And then I feel really heard. Like, you totally got what I just said and kind of the underlying feeling of the relief and excitement that we get to move forward and have a little more time. Yes.
Exactly. Everybody, right? It's simple, y'all, but it's like, it's more than just saying, repeating back, because sometimes people think that restating is just repeating back what you heard, but it's about listening and then cueing into the elements of that the person didn't necessarily say, but where you think that they are going with it and what it means to them. So thank you for participating in that. Another one, which is right along with restating, is something called reframing. And so reframing is when you're taking something that somebody has said as a mediator. You can do this as a manager, you can do this as a friend, and you are turning it into something that is more positive and is something that can be worked on. So for example, if I say, or if the person, if you say, he's impossible to work with, he just doesn't give a shit about the deadlines. Okay. I would say, it sounds like you're frustrated because meeting deadlines is important and you need more reliability from your team. So taking the kind of the emotion of the insult, really, right? Impossible to work with, doesn't give a shit about deadlines, and turning it into something that is framed as a frustration and talking about why that's important. So it's important because deadlines matter and that you need reliability from your team. So, Crystal, does that make sense? And do you want to talk about that example or give another one? Because I think it's such an interesting and important concept, reframing. And I know that you do this very much in your work.
Sure. Let's see. I mean, again, I can probably just launch a little mini complaint, or an example maybe would be.
Oh, yeah. Great. Go for it. Launch a mini complaint.
Yeah. So if you're something that you could reframe for me, I think if I came in and said, yeah, we keep going in circles. Me and this team member, we keep going in circles on this over and over and over again. And I just don't see any pathway forward. If we don't resolve this, I just don't know how to keep going together as a team.
Yeah. So you're frustrated by the way that you and your team member are communicating, and you're wanting to figure out a way to change this.
Exactly. See, right there, I think you kind of gave me hope again, because I come in feeling kind of hopeless, and you're pointing out that, but deep down underneath, I really do want to figure this out. That's why I'm here. And I think reminding that reframe of we are here because we want to figure this out. That's why we're doing mediation, shows that there is at least some chance that this might change rather than feeling truly hopeless.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Perfect. So the mediator, Crystal and everybody, is using these skills of listening, using these skills of reframing, restating, and then getting agreement. That's super important. So agreement is where these people, what values they share and what they agree on. So it's a psychological tool, because people begin to understand when you are pointing out to them as the mediator the areas in which they agree. They begin to feel that kind of forward momentum. It's a tool to help people understand that they're closer than they imagine and that they share kind of values. And so that is values or complaints or, values or frustrations. It doesn't matter. The point is that they have areas of overlap. So pointing out those areas of overlap is really important. And then, so as we're going through, we're now, working through the mountain, and we're going to the mediator is going to work to get points of agreement between these two people, and is going to always start with something easy, or often, whenever possible, start on something where they can agree. And we get agreement that feels good, go on to the next one. And so at the end of the mediation session, and sometimes it takes multiple sessions, often it does, maybe they're just able to agree on one or two things, but the mediator has been tracking what are the different issues that need to be worked on, how, and saying those out to the people, like, we're going to do this. That's the container again, Crystal. We're going to work on this, and then we're going to work on that and on this. And so then they know that they're progressing. They know that they're getting agreement. At the end, whatever that has been able to be agreed upon is written into an actual agreement, an actual physical document. And that becomes the guide for our future relationship. And I'm going to give you an example in a second of a statement that could go into an agreement. But an important part, so then people go away and they work on these agreements. And here's an example. And I'll tell you, we would have agreed on this, but for example, we agree to speak directly with each other instead of venting to others. Does that ever come up, Crystal, where people are like talking to everybody else instead of the person?
Weekly.
All the time, right?
This is a major, major theme. Yes, direct communication is often very challenging, and triangulation is a natural habit of humans to decrease that anxiety of going directly to the source, but it's very ineffective for actually resolving anything. So yes, I love that example.
Yeah. And so that is an example. And we would make sure that everyone knew what that meant, right? Everybody was clear on that. And then we would end, let's say they're going to come back and have a second session. If the folks were not able to stick to the agreement, and there was some type of, they're going to report often that many things went well, but the things that didn't go well, the question is always, well, like, what was wrong with the agreement? What was wrong with what we said that made it so that you couldn't stick to it? So what's important about that, Crystal, is just the formulation of not blaming the person, like, what the hell, but saying, let's go back and figure out what we need to agree on that can actually fulfilled and done versus what happened. Does that
right? So I might say, if you ask, let's say I agreed to go, we'd talk directly to each other instead of venting to others, and we come back for our second meeting, and I say, you know what, we only did it 10% of the time. And you say, well, what was wrong with the agreement that didn't allow that to occur? And I would say, I think that the agreement needs to be more detailed, that it's not just that we agree to come to each other directly. The person that's receiving it needs to be welcoming to the information. Because I tried to come to Katrina and be direct with her and say, hey, I don't like the way, you were talking to me earlier. And when I came to her to say it directly to her, she got very defensive. And so I didn't feel safe going to her. So I'm not going to come to you directly. If you shut me down every time, I'm going to go talk to my friend. So I think we have more to work through today, that the agreement needs to be more detailed about both sides of the street. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And so, Crystal and everybody who's listening, we're going to go up the mountain again.
Yep, that means another mountain path.
We're going up the mountain, and we're going to try, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to look at it from a different angle, and we're going to figure out what some of those persistent issues are, maybe do a little bit of skill building. So that overall are some of the major things. In that agreement piece, or the bit I just said about about the agreement and in blaming it on the agreement, not the person, that's another fundamental principle of mediation, really negotiation, communication for when you're trying to move people off the spot. And this is the concept, Crystal, of blaming the problem, not the person. So it's just really helpful and important to blame the problem being that the agreement wasn't something you felt like you could honor, instead of saying you were, abusive a-hole to me. So you want people to hear that difference and to get that technique. If managers, it really applies to everybody. Everybody in your personal lives, blame the problem, not the person. Like there are a ton of dishes in the sink. We need to talk about what we're going to do as a family so that this doesn't keep happening, instead of what the hell.
Right.
Wash your dishes. That is intolerable.
Got it. What I'll do real quick is I'm just going to do a recap of some of the things that you went over, and then I'm going to set the scene for
Wonderful.
that we're going to do. So I'm just going to go back to the top of our notes here and say, walking through this process of mediation, a mediator first determines whether or not it's even appropriate. So they'll kind of get that background information to say, is this situation appropriate for mediation? If it's appropriate, then they move forward where some background information may be gathered, and some early container might be set before the people even come to mediation, so they kind of know what to expect. Then when they actually sit down in the mediation, the mediator is again setting even more of a container around like confidentiality and how the mediation is going to go. Then this is where the climbing of the mountain starts. They start at the bottom and slowly work their way up the mountain as each person is having an opportunity to courageously share some of their challenges and grievances. And while that's happening, the mediator is employing a variety of skills like active listening, reflecting statements back, reframing the question, restating what was said to make sure everybody's being heard, trying to mine and dig for areas of agreement, how to work through different challenges together, and then finding small wins that they can agree to. Those little small wins early on build that confidence. You will get that in writing as an agreement they've agreed to. They go out into the world, they practice the agreement, they come back for the second mediation oftentimes to discuss what's worked well and what hasn't. And what hasn't worked well, you focus on the problem, not the person, and you kind of do the same mountain climbing activity again. Rinse and repeat until you've come to a place of resolution where they say, hey, we're pretty good. We're going to pause mediation, go out into the world and live. And if you need mediation again, you know where to find Katrina.
That was so fun. What a brilliant restating, Crystal. That felt so affirming. You got it.
I love mediation. I think it is so needed, and not just the work environment, in life. This can do well for people that don't want to go through a nasty divorce with two lawyers battling it out, like using a mediator to just say, hey, we're going to find a path. There's so many situations where I think mediation could be the way, but I digress. Let's get into some examples. I know people listening are probably thinking, what would this really look like in my workplace? And since we focus on the vet med community, I'm going to use a vet med example.
Oh, fabulous.
So the scene is that we have a lead or more senior technician.
What is his or her name? Sorry, just to get personal here.
Let's make that one Sam. So Sam is the more senior technician, been in vet med a long time, has seen it all. And Sam is very frustrated with a greener, newer technician, Alex. And Alex, Alex is a traditionally new technician, comes in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but also I don't know this vet med world. It's a whole new world. It's a very steep learning curve. So in talking to Sam has just reported that, hey, I'm extremely frustrated. I really just don't see this person making it in vet med. I don't think they're cut out for it. And I'm not really interested in training her. It's been a real drain. Try to train her. She's just not catching on. She moves really slow. She seems overwhelmed. I don't have time for this. I have patients we need to see. We need to get our job done. I'm annoyed. And then Alex reports that, and she's the one that initiated the mediation. She actually came to her manager and said, hey, I'm really struggling in my role because when I'm trying to learn and I find that Sam is just shutting me down. She's not wanting to train me. She tends to just take over tasks and kind of pushes me out of the way. I feel like she's critical towards me and in my skill building. I can't do anything right. And I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I'm really nervous. I just kind of put my head down and try and get my job done, but it's not a good working environment. There you go. That's what we're coming into the mediation with.
All right. I love it. And so, so we're going to start to build because they've vented this, let's just say to you, Crystal, right? But now we're in the mediation because you've set it up and you've set the container and you've got it going. Now we're in the mediation with the mediator who is me. And I'm going to set up the container and I'm going to give them a chance to vent really in a safe way. So, I believe a lot of what you were saying would be what they would say, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty much is what that they would say that they would each have a chance to express that sentiment.
Great.
And, I would be listening. I'm listening and I'm taking notes. And you know, I'm going to ask Sam questions. You know, Sam, how long have you been in the industry? What has been your way of operating? I'm going to kind of be digging for understanding what's important to her and how it is that she operates and what her values are and what her kind of triggers are. So doing really discovery as she's telling the story so that I have a framework for getting to what it is that is important to her. Mm-hmm. Right, Crystal? So it's about discovering what really matters to both of them and then finding out if there are areas of agreement. So the same thing with Alex, I'm going to find out, you know, like it's important in a lot of ways. Like, why did she take this job? What matters to her? What is difficult in this? And what does she love? When I'm asking her what she loves, I've also asked Sam what she loves. Is there a connection? Is there something that they both can say, yeah, this is why I'm doing it too? So I'm going to be seeking that. So what do you think I might discover in that process, in that kind of discovery process, in that looking for agreement, in that restating? What do you think I might find out?
I think on Sam's side, you know, sometimes there's a generation gap as well. Like Sam comes from that generation of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I'll be Sam. If you ask me how I was trained, they threw me in the deep end and I learned how to swim, right? Nobody's holding my hand, learning how to swim. And that's basically what I expect. And
what was that like for you, Sam, being thrown in the deep end and expecting, like, what was that experience like?
Fine. You know, I don't sit around and dwell on my emotions much. I don't, you know, think about, oh, poor me. I just get in there and do it. So when I think back on it, it was hard, but I learned fast. And before I knew it, I was good at things. So, you know, temporary discomfort, but then getting good at my job and just figuring it out. So, you know.
So that was your experience. That was your experience with training and how you were. That's your understanding of how it should be done, because that was how it was done for you.
Exactly. And that's how, you know, we traditionally do it here at this hospital. We don't have a training program. Like if people want to do CE on their own, they can. But when you're here to work, we expect you to get in there and just work and get your hands dirty. So I think that that's important to me. I like to see efficiency. I like us to be productive. I like to see high quality medicine. And, you know, really what I'm here for is the patient care. Like I'm here because I love animals. I love medicine. And I want to do a good job. And I also want to get out on time, you know, like get home and see my family. Like I can get in here, do my job and get out. Those are really important to me.
Mm-hmm. I hear those are really important to you. Are there any downsides to that you want to talk about kind of as we're talking today about some of the challenges? Or is there any downsides to the kind of sink or swim, do it fast, you know, do it quickly, get your job done, go home? Like what's any problems with that from your perspective?
For me, I don't feel like it's a problem. I think it's a problem for people that aren't built that way. Like I see that we have a turnover rate here. So when people come in that don't operate that way, they tend to not make it in our hospital. So we've had trouble with staffing. Like we're always short-staffed. because we can't really retain team members who might need more hand-holding to learn, or that go at a slower pace, or are more intimidated by blood draws, or, don't know how to hold a really pissed off cat. If you can't show a lack of confidence in those situations, you have to be confident. And I think that we've had team members come in who, just don't seem to have that grit. And I'm not really sure how to help them build it. I kind of sometimes wonder if you're just born that way or something. So I think that that's a challenge I see here of people just not making it. And when we get a new hire, I want to be optimistic because we definitely need the help. But at the same time, we can barely get through our day with patients. And I don't really know how to divide my energy between just getting the work done and then trying to train somebody when I have never really been taught how to train. I was never really trained. So we kind of feel like we're in an impossible situation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand what you're saying, and and it sounds like there's a lot of pressure. It sounds like you're under a tremendous amount of pressure. And that what you're seeing is a bit of a revolving door in terms of the people who can make it. And it sounds like it's kind of less and less of the people who are able to do it in the way that you were trained and able to to do it that way. And so what I'm wondering, Alex, if you could just talk a little bit. I mean, you were talking about the things that are hard. What is you just heard what Sam said. What's your reflection on your training process, on what worked for you and what really isn't working for you? And I just would like to hear a little bit from you about reflecting on what she just said and what your thoughts are about this organization and how you're brought in and how you're nurtured and grow. Can I hear a little bit from you, please?
Sure. First, I'll just say I'm nervous because I've never done something like this before, and I don't want to make Sam more frustrated. And I think that a lot of the things she said are accurate with definitely how I have been kind of performing at my job. And all my previous jobs really had a lot of training, and they were much slower pace. They had a lot of support. There wasn't like a throw you in the deep end kind of thing. It's more like you have floaty wings on for a while, and you aren't even really fully in the job for 30 days. You're sort of on the side watching and figuring things out and getting trained. And we would have, modules to go through and handbooks to read and all of that. So I think I've just been so used to being trained with a lot of support. And I also think when I get nervous, which I feel nervous a lot, like right now, I have a really hard time learning. I start to shut down and I can't remember things and I get really flustered. And I feel guilty because what she said is true, that we're super busy and we're short-staffed. And I know that I need to figure out a way to be helpful to help get these patients, in and out and taken care of. But I'm always so afraid I'm going to mess up. What if I do something wrong? I feel like I'm in the way. Like when I'm trying to hold an animal or restrain, I'm not doing it right. So I'm just in the way, get out of my way. And so I just go clean a cage. I go find something to clean or restock. And I'm not really getting to be a tech assist. I'm more of just like a glorified, kind of cleaning crew. And that's important because we all pitch in and clean. But I know that I don't do more. And so I feel bad about that. And I feel
Let me just say, thank you so much. I would love to just kind of say back to you what I heard, which is that in other, and I don't know, was it VetMed, the past that you were talking about? Was it in a different clinic? Okay. So in other work environments, you've really had an amount, like a 30-day window, you said, to observe, to learn, and that's really worked for you and given you the kind of confidence you need to be able to have what you need to know. And that what you're experiencing is that without that kind of training time and without that confidence, you're nervous. And I appreciate you acknowledging that, that you're nervous now. Thank you for saying that. But also just, it feels from what you're saying, it's just like you feel, almost, what is it, like back-footed or something, right? That insecure doing your job. And, something that I just want to see if it sounds right to you is, do you believe, Alex, that if you had that 30 days or that dedicated attention, that would really make a big difference in terms of your confidence and your ability to do the things that they want you to do? So is that something that with that you believe that it would really change how you show up at the job and how you show? I want to know if that's, yeah. Can you just talk about that?
I think so. I can't say I'm 100% confident just because I've not been in vet med before. And I know that different industries and professions kind of grow different ways. And medicine is different than anything I've ever done. I've not been in medicine before. But I think so. Like when I'm just kind of back there stocking and cleaning and I'm watching things, I feel like I'm learning while I'm watching. But I know that there's a big aspect of actually you have to practice. Like if you're going to draw blood, you have to get the feel for it. And I don't have it yet, like the angle of the needle and feeling the vein and all of that. And placing a catheter and taping it correctly. Those all take a lot of practice. And so I think I'm a little nervous about bridging that part, like going from watching to doing and being able to support it in that. Because that's where I get the most nervous is if I'm messing up, because we have to practice eventually. Where's the room to practice when we're so slammed all the time? Like there's not like, hey, we have 30 minutes with this pet and we can just like, here, you can try. And if you mess up, I'll step in. And the logistics I think are complicated for me. And I wonder about like, are there other shifts that maybe are a little bit slower, or like, where do I get the opportunity once it's past the observation phase to actually do stuff? But in general, I think that method does work for me.
Okay, so we're going to end roll here, and we're just going to stop. And as the mediator, I understand their different perspectives, and they have heard them from each other. I still don't know how this is going to resolve, just to be clear. I don't know. But what I am going to be doing is working towards areas of agreement and understanding where they overlap. So Alex really doesn't think that the way that she was trained was the best way. Like I'm feeling that literally it's like being thrown into the pool. I actually don't think throwing infants into the pool and seeing if they can swim is the way to learn how to swim. So I'm going to be looking for where there is middle ground between how Alex wants to learn in that time. And she's recognizing that there's like potentially burning time, right? I don't know that Sam's going to go for, 30 days. Like that's crazy talk. But you were already starting to say that there may be ways in terms of shifts. So what I'd like to do here is to find, and maybe we'll just, look, we're just doing this as a role play. We don't know either one of us right now, but see where that area of agreement is. Let me just ask, does Sam think truly that Alex is a lost cause?
Yeah, so Sam would say, okay, I'll be Sam.
I mean, I'm not going to ask you directly in the mediation, do you think Alex is a lost cause? But I could go pretty close to that. Like, I don't know. Actually, I wouldn't ask her. I need Sam to speak to something about why she's bothering at all to even have this conversation. Because if she thought she was a lost cause, she wouldn't be here. So I need to know what that is, and then we can kind of move towards making maybe a couple of agreements that are going to help her.
Yes, if you asked me that, and Alex had just spoken, you asked me a question, like, why are you even here in the mediation, really? I'd say, again, like I said, the whole revolving door, as you put it, which is really well said, is exhausting. And if we could figure out a way to help these, team members who are a little bit different than I am, if we could figure out a way to help them stay, like I'm open to learning new ways. And I also think, like, just in hearing what Alex was saying, that maybe I'm not the only person that should be in this meeting, because one, I'm thinking that our manager makes the schedule. And so to me, this is like a scheduling issue where if Alex was able to be scheduled on as an extra, so she's not counted on the schedule as a tech assist, we're not relying on her, she's just there, then she could be observing more. So maybe part of it is like, hey, if she's really put on as an assist, there's less pressure. And then I was also thinking, you know, Janet, she's been here as long as I have, and her style is she's more of a natural teacher. Like, I'm a doer. I just get in there and get shit done. I don't think about teaching. I don't really like teaching, but Janet has always liked teaching. So maybe it's more of like, well, who can Alex be paired up with on a shift that person has more of a natural, like, hey, I'd like to show you how to do things. So it's like taking some of the pressure off of the two of us being paired together, because we're on the schedule together all the time. And I get frustrated. She gets frustrated. You know, I can't give her what she needs. You know, so I think that part of me is just like, I'm kind of like feeling like I don't know what I can give you other than I understand what you're saying. I think that it makes sense. But as far as like who I am and what I do in my work, I just don't know that I'm the person that can make big changes for her. I'm the workhorse. Like, you all could just let me get my job done, get these patients in and out, and I will stay off everybody's back. I don't need to, like, I'm not your cheerleader. I'm not your teacher, but maybe somebody else on the team is.
Well, what's wonderful that in terms of what you just said is that you are already beginning to kind of brainstorm some ideas about how Alex could get some more support, and her colleagues. I know that there's a crew of them. It's not just Alex. And identifying that there is another team member who might be wonderful. So there's going to be a next step after this session of talking. We may get together again. But let me just ask you quickly, Alex, have you had that experience of being an extra? And what's that been like for you, being scheduled as an extra? And also, while we're there, have you experienced other shifts, and what's that like for you?
So not in previous jobs, that's usually how I was trained. Like, you're scheduled as an extra while you're observing. So you're not really on the schedule. And that's worked for me really well because there's not the pressure, and I'm just sort of, you know, learning by watching. I have not been on other schedules here. I've always just been paired with Sam, so I don't really know.
Okay.
My schedule was a little bit flexible. Like, I could probably make some changes, or at least for a little while to get trained. The schedule I'm on now is kind of ideal for my life, but I'd be willing to make some adjustments if it helped me, you know, get trained faster.
Yeah, I mean, Alex had some. I think Alex, you had some really, you know, it seems kind of obvious, but we're talking about things. So I loved you made a few suggestions, which I think we can really take out of here, and that is that Alex gets scheduled as an extra so that she can observe, and that also she get paired with Janice, who's that natural teacher and can take the time and loves to train. And tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but what I can imagine is that when Alex has been trained in the way that works for her and has had the time, it sounds like you would welcome her in that state when you two are paired together, because she's going to be in that place where you can really demonstrate another part of what makes you wonderful at what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just say, like, Alex, no hard feelings. Like, this is not a personal thing. You probably noticed I don't really have friendships at work. I'm just here to do my job. I try to keep my work and my personal life really separate. You know, I just want to get home to my family. And so if you feel any kind of like spiciness from me, it's more just annoyance about us not getting our work done. It's not about you as a person. I don't really think about people's personalities. So I think for you and me working together, the key to us feeling better about working together is being able to get stuff done. And I know on my side of the street, even as I say this, I'm thinking, I know I need to work on my patients, and ever since I've been here, it's been 20 years in vet med, I've always been known as kind of like the grumpy cat in the clinic. So I think that people just kind of have gotten used to me, but I'm aware that it's not easy for new people that might feel personal. So I just want to say I'm trying to be a little more patient, but I'm also trying to just be authentic in who I am. And I do apologize if it's made you feel uncomfortable. At the same time, I don't think I'm going to change much. I'm pretty old now. But I like the ideas that we're coming up with. I think they could help. And I would enjoy working with you a lot more if I had confidence that if you're holding, a really pissed off cat, that you're going to do it correctly and I'm not going to get bit. Or that, if you're going to, draw blood, you get 2 pokes and you're done. You're not going to get a third poke. We can't be pin cushioning all the animals that come in this door. So those sorts of things of quality of medicine, that we're taking care of these pets and we're being efficient, that wins me over. And I think I'm fairly easy to work with if we're meeting those standards.
All right. So then we're gonna end the scene. And Crystal, even though we were role playing, what you just came to there at the end, like, it's so moving. It's what happens. I know you've experienced it, but it's very realistic.
This is
She did come in, Sam, basically saying Alex, like all the finger pointing, it's her, she's slow, like all of this. Mm-hmm. We go through the mountain and she's saying, I know I'm a rough cat. Like she's owning her stuff, and that is going to change Alex's life, hearing her say that. And she's contributed. She really has. She's contributed her ideas, her seniority, like the manager didn't think of that. And so there's some really beautiful things that have happened in this role play in terms of where they are. And in terms of agreement, I think it's going to be very simple. It's going to be a matter of talking to Janice, and we'll figure out, we don't have to role play it, but we'll figure out who talks to Janice. It's probably going to be Sam, who's like, hey, would you be willing to do this? Somebody's going to talk to the manager. Maybe they talk to the manager together because the manager knows that they've been working on this. And so maybe they go together to talk to the manager about different hours and extra. And they're actually going to oddly bond together, because what Sam wants is to have a skilled, energetic, able-bodied, cooperative person there to help her. That's all she wants. And she's going to get that if Alex can get what she needs in the way of training and support. And so really in mediation, what we're going for, whatever we can, is something called a win-win, which is where both parties come out really feeling like they got a win out of it. It, like, they're both of them have gotten something from this conversation. What do you want to add? What did that feel like from your perspective, or what do you want to say about that?
What I want people to notice, so I'll back up and say, both Katrina and I do mediation, I think, regularly. I think Katrina did maybe more in the past, and I know that your work has shifted some, but it comes up all the time in our work. And that example, what I want you to notice is what the mediator was doing, right? These 2 people could have sat in a room together without a mediator, and they would have just gone at each other, or Sam would go at Alex and Alex would shut down and eventually quit. So Katrina's mediation is the magic sauce. The way she asked questions is a way of, it's kind of like we go through the back door. We don't go at something directly. You don't say, do you think Alex is a lost cause? But in the back of her mind, that's what she's trying to get to. Yeah. And she's asking, well, what brings you, like, why are you even here? Because it's kind of, it's saying in a roundabout way, like, do you think this is a lost cause? Otherwise, why would you be here? It's a kind of indirect restating, reframing. Those are techniques that are proven to help facilitate people's change. We're basically trying to help people move through the stages of change and coming together on a common resolution, because ultimately people really don't like to be in conflict. We want to move towards resolution, but we just don't have the tools to do it. And we might come from very different backgrounds. Like Sam and Alex have very different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So the mediator is really the bridge. And so I hope that people could feel the value of what Katrina was doing there, even though it seems subtle. It kind of feels like magic to people when they go through it. They're like, what just happened? Mm-hmm. And that's why we're trying to give language to what she was doing with the active listening, the reframing, these different techniques that take a lot of practice to seem so natural. And also that Katrina is naturally, I think what makes her a great mediator is she's naturally very empathic. She's naturally very curious. She doesn't assume the answer. I think a big fault would be if Katrina already thought she knew the answer and she's trying to lead them there. That would not work, because both people would dig their heels in and think, well, you're just another manager trying to tell me what to do. I'll also say that sometimes I will invite a manager to join just in kind of like a passive way, and maybe just to be there to answer questions. If a logistical question comes up about what's possible with the schedule, she's there and she could actually say, actually, that's a brilliant idea that I never thought about moving the schedule around. And also for a manager to witness mediation, because often managers are put in situations where they're kind of just, oh shit, I might need to mediate real quick. And they're like, what do I say right now that doesn't make it worse? And they can play back a mediation they've sat in on. And instead of like jumping to a solution, slow their roll, dig a little deeper, look for some common ground. Why are you here? What do you mean? And I think that's also, hopefully by those listening today, you're maybe putting a few tools in your tool belt of like some of the things that Katrina was modeling that you might be able to use when you find yourself in a tough situation. Because it can go just like this. It usually takes longer. You have to kind of get through the beginning of the mountain. We kind of went through it more quickly than it normally occurs. But the arc of what just happened over one or multiple sessions, that is the arc of a mediation. I think it went really well.
It was realistic, in my opinion. You did a wonderful job of playing both of those.
Well, I'm trying to be really authentic, because I often try, if I do pre-work before a mediation one-on-one with people, I really encourage them to come in and be respectfully authentic. I think that what sometimes occurs in mediation is one party really holds back, and it's a people-pleasing behavior comes out. And I know it's happening. I'm like, dang it. Like they're hiding. They're not really saying their truth fully. So trying to create that safe space and encourage tiptoeing a little bit more in the area of discomfort of revealing what they truly feel. Because it's really hard to mediate if you don't have people being forthcoming. So I think what helped this mediation was that both people felt safe enough to, I'm nervous, or I'm a pissed off grumpy cat.
No, I love that. And also another piece that's a technique, and everyone can use as a manager, et cetera, is to begin with the less powerful party. So in this case, we didn't specify who had said what in what order, but I would have begun with Alex because she's less powerful. And
it definitely helps if the less powerful person speaks first. They're not already backed into the corner feeling scared. And you can also start with questions that are less vulnerable. So you wouldn't go straight to like, hey, Alex, tell me how you feel about Sam. It's like you would never go that directly. It's just more about things that are more generalized, like your work environment and your previous training and what's worked for you and that kind of stuff. It's easier to talk about because it's not so confrontational. Like warming it up. You got to warm it up.
All right.
Well, great. So, now that we're coming down the home stretch, Katrina, first, I just want to thank you for being here. I love your mediation technique. I feel so naturally at home with you. And, I've sought you out for mediation for myself. Like, I need a mediator in this situation. So I trust Katrina completely. And I just value the work that you do so much. I think this is a natural, like, you're probably born with it type of gift. And I appreciate you so much being on the podcast today to share this with people. And I wanted to ask for those who are listening, if they want to connect with you and learn more about what you do, even beyond mediation, what's where you're going to find you?
So I can be reached over at katrinabusselle.com, which is my website, KatrinaBusselle. So feel free to check me out over there. And I believe, Crystal, I have a book recommendation that you're going to put in the show notes. if you haven't explored the world of mediation, I would highly recommend a classic book called Getting to Yes by Fisher and Ury. And also because your team are vet med, there is a wonderful author, Atul Gawande, who's a physician and just an incredible human being. And even though he's talking about human medicine, I think that your people would really enjoy looking at his body of work, because the essence of what he says, and he cites a study, but it's not just about citing studies, is that the more we can engage our communication skills and have tough conversations and communicate in a way that is authentic and human and deliver tough news in very thoughtful ways, the better our customer experience is going to be, the better our outcomes are going to be with the families that we work with. So there's a real incentive for all of us to work on these skills and to, be as communicative as we can be and direct and empathetic and all of those things that you're talking about. So a quick plug for that as it relates to your community. But this has been a pleasure being with you. Thank you for being such a game role player, Crystal.
I love
doing what you do.
I love doing it. And I'll link all that stuff up in the show notes and really encourage people to check it out, because I'll plug one more thing about those resources is that it's also a way to prevent litigation. We're all often scared of being sued working in medicine. And having good mediation skills with clients or particular situations that could go sideways, really the studies have shown has a major impact on helping prevent any kind of litigation. And just we can figure it out between us. We can mediate this and figure it out, and we all walk away getting our needs met. So it is like I said, a win-win is what we're aiming for. So all those resources will be linked up in the show notes. And Katrina, I just appreciate you putting on so much. It was really fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.